A thick fog hung over the town of Ravenswood like a ghostly veil. The streets were deserted, and the eerie silence of the early morning was only broken by the creaking of shop signs swaying in the wind. At the heart of the town stood an imposing structure, the Blackwood Mansion, abandoned for over 30 years. But something was different about it that night. Across the street, Mr. Whitaker, the owner of the town's antique shop, was locking up when a strange noise came from the mansion. A shiver ran down his spine. He turned slowly and saw a shadow move behind the dusty windows. It can't be. He swallowed hard and hurried away, disappearing into the darkness of the street. The next morning, the Mystery Inc. gang parked the mystery machine in front of Whitaker's shop. Fred adjusted his ascot and knocked on the door. The old shopkeeper opened it, visibly shaken. "Thank goodness you're here," he exclaimed, pulling them inside. Daphne looked around, noticing the shop was completely empty. "What's going on, Mr. Whitaker?" "It's the Blackwood Mansion." "It's haunted!" Shaggy trembled, clutching Scooby-Doo. Haunted? Like, I think we should just stay out of it, right, Scoob?" "Right," Scooby agreed, already hiding behind the counter. Velma crossed her arms and adjusted her glasses. "Can you tell us exactly what's been happening?" Mr. Whitaker took a deep breath before continuing. "Strange noises come from there at night. Doors slamming, whispers, shadows moving. But last night," he looked around as if afraid someone was listening, "I saw a figure inside, and then I heard a horrifying laugh." Fred exchanged a serious look with the team. "Sounds like the perfect mystery for us. Let's check it out tonight." Shaggy's eyes widened. "What do you mean, let's?" "Nobody asked if I wanted to investigate a haunted house." "Relax, Shaggy," Velma said, patting his shoulder. "There's probably a logical explanation for everything." Daphne glanced at the mansion through the window and frowned. "But who would want people to believe it's haunted?" Fred nodded. "That's exactly what we're going to find out." The full moon hung high in the sky as the group approached Blackwood Mansion. Its tall, rusted gates creaked open under Fred's push. "Well, I've seen cozier places," Daphne muttered. They climbed the worn-out steps and pushed the heavy front door open. A cold gust of air escaped from within, as if welcoming them. The grand entry hall was dark, filled with old furniture covered in dust-laden sheets. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the corridors. "What was that?" Shaggy yelped, grabbing onto Scooby. Velma pointed toward a swinging chandelier above them. "That's strange. There's no wind in here." Fred switched on his flashlight and stepped cautiously into the main hallway. "Let's split up. Daphne and I will check the upstairs rooms. Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, stay down here and investigate." "It always has to be me," Shaggy groaned. The group parted ways. Fred and Daphne climbed the staircase, the wooden steps groaning under their weight. The first room held nothing but dust and old furniture, but out in the corridor, fresh footprints in the dust. "Fred, those footprints?" Daphne whispered. "Someone's been here recently?" Fred confirmed. Downstairs, Velma examined an old painting when Scooby sniffed at something. "Rag, rag, rag," he barked, pointing toward a half-open door. Shaggy hesitated. "Oh man, why is there always a creepy door?" Velma slowly pushed it open. Inside was a dusty office with an extinguished fireplace and an old desk cluttered with yellowed papers. She picked one up and read aloud. "Last will and testament of Arthur Blackwood." "Wait, Arthur Blackwood? The mansion's owner?" Shaggy asked. Before Velma could respond, the door slammed shut with a violent force. Scooby leapt into Shaggy's arms. "Ah, I want to get out of here. Hold on." Velma shined her flashlight around. No one was there. Suddenly, an ominous voice echoed through the halls. "Leave, leave, while you still can." Shaggy and Scooby bolted from the room in pure terror. Fred and Daphne rushed downstairs at the sound of their screams. "What happened?" Fred demanded. Shaggy struggled to catch his breath. "The house, it talked to us." Velma frowned. "This is getting weird. I found an important document. Maybe someone wants to keep this place haunted to hide something." Fred nodded. "That gives us even more reason to keep investigating." Before they could react, a loud noise erupted from upstairs. Something or someone was up there. The group exchanged uneasy glances. "Let's find out what's really going on," Fred said firmly. As they ascended the staircase, a blood-curdling scream filled the mansion. A chilling scream echoed through Blackwood Mansion, sending a shiver down the gang's spines. They froze at the base of the grand staircase, their eyes locked on the darkened second floor. "Oh, are we sure we want to find out what that was?" Shaggy stammered, gripping Scooby tightly. Fred adjusted his flashlight. "We came here for answers. We're not backing out now." Daphne exhaled, glancing around. "Let's just hope it was the wind." Velma shook her head. "A scream like that? Unlikely." Fred led the way as they climbed the creaking wooden steps, the air growing colder. At the top, a dim hallway stretched before them, lined with heavy wooden doors. A thud sounded from the far end. "Zoinks!" Shaggy yelped. "That's it. We saw what we needed. Let's go." Scooby nodded frantically. Fred placed a firm hand on Shaggy's shoulder. "We have a mystery to solve." Velma crouched, pointing at fresh footprints in the dust, leading to the last door on the right. "Someone's been here recently?" Daphne hesitated. "Should we check?" Fred nodded. He pushed the door open, revealing a dusty study. Bookshelves lined the walls, and a large wooden desk sat in the center, covered in scattered papers. Scooby sniffed, his ears perking up. "Raggy. Something smells weird." Velma picked up a worn journal. "This is Arthur Blackwood's. He wrote about debts. And something called a hidden vault." "Hidden vault?" Daphne repeated. Fred leaned in. "Maybe someone is trying to scare people away to keep it a secret." Before they could say more, a gust of wind slammed the door shut. "IHH." Shaggy and Scooby clung to each other. A low whisper filled the air. "Leave, now." Velma frowned. A ghostly voice? Unlikely? Her eyes landed on a suspicious-looking book on the shelf. She pulled it. A soft click echoed, and the bookshelf swung open, revealing a secret passage. Daphne gasped. "A hidden tunnel." Fred smirked. "Looks like we found our way to the basement." Shaggy groaned. "I was afraid you'd say that." The group cautiously entered the narrow stone passage, the air damp and musty. At the bottom of a spiral staircase, they found a rusted iron door. "Locked?" Daphne observed. Velma examined it. "The lock's old, but not broken. Whoever was here hasn't opened it yet." Fred turned to Shaggy and Scooby. "You guys have a knack for accidentally opening doors." Shaggy blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before anyone could answer, he tripped crashing into the door with Scooby. With a clang, the rusted lock broke, and the door swung open. "Told you." Fred grinned. Inside, the basement stretched into darkness, lined with stone pillars and crates. In the center stood an ancient vault door, covered in mysterious carvings. Velma gasped. "We found it." But before they could step forward, a shadowy figure emerged from behind a pillar. A deep, eerie voice filled the chamber. "You should not have come here." The gang gasped. "Zoinks!" Shaggy whispered. "I think we just met the ghost." The figure stepped forward, glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. Fred clenched his fists. Time to find out who's really behind this. The shadowy figure stepped closer, its glowing red eyes piercing the darkness of the basement. The gang stood frozen, unsure if they were facing a real ghost or something far more sinister. Why do we always end up in these situations?" Shaggy whispered, gripping Scooby tightly. Scooby trembled. "Oh, run." Fred raised a hand. "No one's running." Let's see what this ghost really wants. The figure let out a low, rumbling laugh. You shouldn't have come here. Leave before it's too late. Shaggy and Scooby screamed and tried to bolt, but Daphne caught them by their collars. Oh no, you don't. We're getting to the bottom of this. Velma squinted at the figure. Those glowing eyes. That voice, I think it's a trick. She pulled out her flashlight and aimed it directly at the figure's face. The light revealed a long, dark cloak and a metallic device attached to the hood, a voice modulator. Fred smirked. Just as I thought. This isn't a ghost. It's someone trying to scare us off. The figure took a step back, then suddenly threw a smoke bomb onto the floor. Thick fog filled the basement. They're getting away, Daphne shouted. Fred charged forward, but by the time the smoke cleared, the figure had vanished. Velma coughed, waving away the smoke. They must have escaped through another passage. Shaggy sighed. Can we take that as a sign to leave? Not yet, Velma said, turning to the massive vault door in the center of the room. Fred examined the ancient carvings on the metal. If this vault was important enough for someone to scare people away, then we need to know what's inside. Daphne noticed a keypad and a combination lock built into the door. This isn't just an old vault. Someone added modern security. Velma flipped through Arthur Blackwood's journal, skimming the pages. There, he mentions a special code hidden in his study upstairs. Fred nodded. Then we split up. Velma, Daphne, and I will find the code. Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy held up his hands. Oh no way. If this vault is locked, that means something is inside, and I don't want to be here when it gets out. Scooby nodded furiously. All right, Velma smirked. Fine, you two keep watch. Just try not to run away at the first noise. Shaggy chuckled nervously. No promises. Fred, Velma, and Daphne hurried up the stairs, leaving Shaggy and Scooby alone in the basement. A deep creak echoed from somewhere in the darkness. Scooby, but please tell me that was your stomach. Scooby gulped. Not me. Suddenly, a soft scratching sound came from behind a wooden crate. Shaggy turned pale. Oh, okay, we're leaving. Scooby nodded. Right now. But as they turned, a shadow moved across the wall. Shaggy yelped. Zoinks! It's the ghost! Before they could run, a small black cat leapt from behind the crate and scurried across the room. Scooby exhaled in relief. Just a cat. Shaggy wiped his forehead. That's it. I'm never trusting shadows again. Just then, Fred's voice called from upstairs. Guys, we found the code. Shaggy and Scooby dashed toward the vault, just as the rest of the gang returned. Velma typed the 6-digit code into the keypad. The vault let out a deep metallic groan, then slowly began to unlock. Everyone held their breath as Fred pushed the heavy door open. Inside was a large chamber, filled with stacks of old documents, chests, and paintings wrapped in cloth. Velma's eyes widened. This isn't just a vault. It's a hidden treasure room. Daphne pulled back one of the claws, revealing a priceless golden artifact. No wonder someone didn't want people snooping around. Fred nodded. The real question is, who? Before anyone could answer, a loud crash sounded from the entrance of the mansion. Sounds like our ghost is back, Velma muttered. Fred clenched his fists. Time to end this mystery once and for all. A thunderous crash echoed through Blackwood Mansion, shaking the old wooden beams. The gang exchanged tense glances inside the newly opened vault. Zoinks! I don't know about you guys, but I think that's our cue to leave. Shaggy stammered, gripping Scooby. Scooby nodded frantically. Right! Fred turned to Velma. Whoever's behind this must have realized we found the vault. We need to be ready. Velma adjusted her glasses, scanning the stacks of old documents and artifacts inside the hidden chamber. This treasure is worth millions. If someone's been trying to keep people away, they must be planning to steal it. Daphne pulled back another cloth, revealing a dusty ledger. She opened it and gasped, "These are records of Blackwood's lost assets. This vault contains his entire fortune." Fred clenched his fists. "Then we need to set a trap. If the culprit is after this, they'll have to come to us." The gang quickly came up with a strategy. "We'll hide and wait for them to make a move," Fred explained. Shaggy's face turned pale. "Whoa, wait. You mean we're going to be bait?" "Precisely," Velma smirked. Shaggy groaned. "Why do I always get the bad job?" Fred placed an old golden goblet on the vault floor, right in plain sight. "This will be our lure. When they try to take it, we catch them." The gang turned off their flashlights and hid behind the crates, waiting in tense silence. Minutes ticked by. Then soft footsteps echoed down the stone passage. Scooby gulped. R-R-O. A shadow crept through the vault doorway. The gang held their breath as the figure moved toward the goblet, reaching out a gloved hand. "Now," Fred shouted. Daphne switched on her flashlight, illuminating the figure. The person gasped and tried to run, but Shaggy and Scooby, panicking, accidentally toppled a pile of crates, blocking the exit. We got him," Scooby stammered. The figure struggled, but Velma quickly pulled off their hood, revealing a familiar face. "Mr. Bartlett?" Daphne gasped. Mr. Bartlett, the real estate developer, scowled. "You meddling kids." Shaggy blinked. "Wait, you're the ghost?" Velma held up the ledger. "You knew about the vault and tried to scare everyone away so you could take the treasure for yourself," Bartlett growled. "I bought this mansion for almost nothing. If people thought it was haunted, I could keep everyone away until I found the vault and sold everything." Fred crossed his arms. "But you didn't count on us finding it first." Bartlett tried to run again, but Daphne swiftly tripped him with a rope trap. He hit the ground hard as police sirens blared outside. Minutes later, the authorities arrived, led by Officer Jenkins. "We received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity here," he said. Velma smirked. "That was us." Bartlett was cuffed and taken away, grumbling the whole time. "And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids." Shaggy sighed in relief. "Man, I thought we were dealing with real ghosts this time." Scooby chuckled. Me too." Officer Jenkins nodded at the gang. "Thanks to you kids, Blackwood's fortune can go back to the rightful heirs." Fred smiled. Just another mystery solved. Daphne dusted off her hands. "So, pancakes to celebrate?" Shaggy's eyes lit up. "Now that's a plan I can get behind." Scooby grinned. Scooby-Dooby-Doo. The Blackwood mansion stood silent now, its long-kept mystery unraveled. The gang watched as Mr. Bartlett was escorted into a police car, still grumbling. The flashing red and blue lights painted eerie shadows against the mansion's old stone walls. "So, no ghosts, just another greedy guy after hidden treasure," Velma remarked, adjusting her glasses. "Yeah, but like, that whispering voice? And the doors slamming shut?" Shaggy asked, arms crossed. Scooby gulped. Yeah, spooky stuff." Velma smirked and held up a small voice modulator device she had taken from Bartlett's cloak. This was attached to his disguise. It played recorded sounds through hidden speakers in the walls. He must have set it up ahead of time. Fred nodded. "And the doors?" "Rigged with pulleys, probably controlled remotely," Velma explained. Daphne sighed. "He went through a lot of trouble just to scare people away." Officer Jenkins approached, flipping through Arthur Blackwood's old ledger. "It's a good thing you kids got involved. These documents prove Bartlett was trying to claim the estate through fraud. He never legally owned this place." Velma glanced at the mansion's towering structure. "So what happens to it now?" Jenkins rubbed his chin. "According to the town's records, Arthur Blackwood had a living relative, his great-niece, Eleanor Blackwood. If she wants the estate, it's hers. Fred smiled. At least Blackwood's fortune will go to the right person. Shaggy stretched. Well, mystery solved. Now can we finally get some pancakes? Scooby's ears perked up. Or pancakes? Daphne laughed. I think we earned it. The gang piled into the mystery machine, ready to leave the creepy mansion behind forever. As Fred started the van, Velma flipped through the journal one last time. Her brow furrowed. That's weird. Daphne glanced over. What is? Velma tapped a passage. Blackwood wrote about a second vault. This one hidden somewhere in the courtyard. Fred hit the brakes. A second vault? Shaggy groaned. Why do you always find things like this after we're done? Velma grinned. Looks like we're not done just yet. The gang stepped out of the van, flashlights in hand, heading toward the mansion's overgrown courtyard. Somewhere in the shadows, something moved. The moon hung high over Blackwood Mansion, casting long shadows across the overgrown courtyard. The gang stood around the ancient stone fountain, which, according to Arthur Blackwood's journal, hid a second vault. Shaggy groaned. So instead of heading to a diner, we're digging up more mystery? Scooby shivered. Right, spooky stuff. Fred examined the moss-covered structure. If the journal's right, there should be a mechanism somewhere. Daphne ran her fingers along the fountain's cracked stone surface. Blackwood wouldn't just leave it unprotected. Velma adjusted her glasses, flipping through the journal pages. He mentioned something about an emergency access switch, hidden in the stone base. Shaggy sighed, leaning against the fountain. Yeah, well, if it were that easy, click. A deep rumbling shook the ground. Oh, Shaggy gulped. The fountain began to lower, revealing a spiraling stone staircase leading underground. With flashlights in hand, the gang descended the dusty steps, stepping into a damp, cold passageway. The air smelled of mold and age, the walls lined with flickering torches. Someone's been here recently, Velma noted, brushing away fresh footprints in the dust. At the far end, a massive stone door, carved with intricate symbols, stood sealed shut. Fred ran a hand across the strange markings. This must be it. Daphne squinted at a small recess in the wall. Looks like it needs a key or some kind of trigger. Shaggy took a nervous step back. Can't we just, not open it? Scooby gulped. All right. Before anyone could respond, a deep metallic groan echoed through the chamber. The vault door creaked open on its own. The gang held their breath as they peered inside. But instead of gold and jewels, they found rows of shelves stacked with aged documents, maps, and letters. No treasure? Daphne frowned. Velma scanned the parchment. This is the treasure. These are land deeds, business records, and legal documents. Blackwood's real fortune wasn't in gold. It was property and assets. Fred nodded. Bartlett thought he'd find riches, but these papers are worth millions. Daphne unrolled a sealed letter. This talks about Blackwood's business partner betraying him. Someone tried to erase him from history. Just as they began piecing things together, a loud crash echoed from above. That came from outside, Velma gasped. The gang rushed up the staircase, emerging back into the moonlit courtyard, just in time to see two shadowy figures sprinting toward the woods. Fred clenched his fists. Looks like Bartlett wasn't working alone. Police sirens blared in the distance as Officer Jenkins arrived, his squad blocking the exits. Stop them, Jenkins shouted. The suspects barely made it 10 feet before officers tackled them to the ground. Fred approached as Jenkins pulled off one of the suspects who's Bartlett's assistant, Mr. Grayson. You were in on this too, huh? Grayson scowled. We almost had it. Velma crossed her arms. Sorry, but this mystery's closed. Daphne smirked. And your treasure hunt is over. By morning, the town gathered outside Blackwood Mansion as Officer Jenkins announced that Eleanor Blackwood, Arthur's great-niece, would reclaim the estate. She shook hands with Fred. "I can't thank you enough for uncovering the truth. My great-uncle's legacy deserved better than to be lost forever." Velma handed her the journal. "This belongs to you now. It holds the full story of what happened here." Shaggy stretched. "So, now that we've saved the day, does that mean we can finally go get some pancakes?" Scooby's ears perked up. Pancakes!" The gang laughed, piling into the mystery machine. As they drove away, Shaggy sighed contentedly. "You know, solving mysteries is fun, as long as there aren't any actual ghosts." Velma chuckled. "If only we were that lucky." Daphne gazed back at the restored mansion. "At least this place finally has its happy ending." Fred grinned, shifting gears. On to the next adventure. As the mystery machine disappeared down the road, Scooby turned to the camera with a big grin. "Scooby-Dooby-Doo."